Hey there guys, we're taking a look at Crysis Remastered running on the AMD Ryzen 9 6900HS. Now this is currently running at 1080p with the lowest graphics settings. And the 680M is actually producing some pretty great performance here. Specifically, pay attention to the frame times. They're very consistent, which means you are getting a very smooth experience even though we're not hitting a 60 FPS average. But considering this is running at full 1080p resolution, this is really great performance. Now, it can get pretty intense in certain areas and things will start to dip into the 30s, but for the most part, the frame times themselves are going to stay consistent throughout all of that. Now, you can drop the resolution down to 900p or 720p if you would like a higher FPS experience, but overall, I think this was a very enjoyable experience as is. It's all around just really impressive performance out of RDNA 2 here, and it really makes me think that we might not be getting any iGPU improvements from AMD for a while. At least I'm really hoping that Raptor Lake brings in some impressive iGPU performance from Intel so that we can actually have some strong back and forth competition going on in this segment of the market. Because if in the next year or two we can end up having this level of performance in the price tier of the 5500U, that's going to be insane levels of performance per dollar. Because as it stands, while this is very impressive levels of performance, for the price point that you're going to end up finding any system with this chip, you're not really getting much value. I will really be shocked if we actually end up seeing any systems that ship with just this CPU for under $1,000. I know ETA Prime showed off a mini PC that actually has this chip in there, but I really am not expecting that to be less than $1,000. And at those price points, you're really just going to get the most value out of just a dedicated gaming laptop with a DGPU. I mean, these iGPUs really are just supposed to be kind of a last resort kind of situation where it's on such budget systems that putting in a graphics card in there would actually increase the price to the point where it would be out of reach for a lot of people. Because I mean, $500 for the level of performance you get out of the 5500U, it's pretty impressive. But $1,500 for this level of performance, that's really not great. Now, obviously, this laptop itself actually has a dedicated graphics card in there, but I have it disabled. But if it was just this chip by itself, this would be not impressive levels of performance at all for $1,500. So really, it is impressive levels of performance that we're getting here, but it's just going to be very disappointing to see that it's only going to be available in very expensive systems. What I am curious about though is how much more performance could we actually get out of this if we had faster RAM, because this is not the fastest RAM that this chip can actually work with. In fact, the Steam Deck actually has more GPU bandwidth than this does, though it has significantly less GPU cores. And so far from what I've seen, this is performing better than the Steam Deck actually does. And I think that really just comes down to the fact that there are no proprietary like custom drivers that need to be made, since the chip that is actually in the Steam Deck is a custom design, since it's pretty much a Frankenstein of a Zen 2 core design with the iGPU of this generation of CPUs. So overall, this is going to provide you a more consistent experience, at least on Windows. And that really has me thinking a lot about the handhelds that are going to eventually launch with these APUs in them. I mean, this is really crazy levels of performance, and at that point you might be able to justify $1,500 for an Aya Neo, because I mean, it is going to essentially be the most powerful handheld device on the market, bar none. And it's such a unique form factor that you can't really compare it necessarily too much with something like a laptop, because I mean, this is 1080p performance. If we drop things down to 720p, we're going to be at a 60 FPS average. You put that on a handheld device, and that is insane levels of performance. It would get to the point where it's not really that out of the question to think that maybe starting to put 720p 120 hertz displays on these handhelds might not be a bad move. The biggest issue is really just the fact that what a high refresh rate screen is going to do in terms of battery life, but it would be great if for one of these devices, if you were just plugged into you know, the wall, you could play at like a high refresh rate and actually be able to enjoy it, because the chip is going to be able to do that at 720p. That's just really the only form factor factor that I could realistically justify this chip, just because it's such a unique situation where it's so out of reach for pretty much everyone, just out of price, and the performance that it produces is very good for what it is, but it's not impressive when you compare it to the price tier that it's in. Because I mean, $700 can get you a laptop with like a 3050 in it, and a 3050 is not amazing, but it's leagues better than this. And I mean, if we're talking about over $1,000, now we're starting to talk about potentially 3060 or even 3070 price tiers. Handhelds are really just such a unique form factor that it's the only way that you can realistically justify the existence of this chip, because even mini PCs, I just don't really see the appeal, because just a little bit bigger in size can get you significantly more performance for a cheaper price. Like, you would really need to want extreme space savings to justify a mini PC that has this chip in it. I think maybe if it was $600 to $700, it would be maybe justifiable, though it would pretty much just have to come practically fully built and you really wouldn't have to add much more to it. Although again, there's a lot of pre-builts that are even in the $500 range that will net you way more performance than this. And yeah, they're pre-built, but it's still going to be better performance overall, even in their worst possible configuration. Overall though, I'm just very impressed with the performance that we're getting out of this chip, and it really just gets me excited to see what it can do scaled down. But anyways, I hope you found this video useful. If you did, be sure to subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one.